Baruchim Abayim, blessed are those who come. This is Pesach Sherbo coming to you live, if you're watching right now, from Spot, Israel, where it is 3:04 in the morning. And this is B'nai Noach Connection with Israel, Torah for the Nations. And I'm here with my co-host, Terry Hayes, who, Terry from Tennessee, by the way. He'll be running the meeting next week because I won't be able to be here next week. So make sure you come anyway. He's going to be here. I'm sure he's got something great planned for you for next week. For those of you who don't know, we've been going through Rosh Hashana, head of the year, the new year. And a lot of people say, wait a minute, how can it be Rosh Hashanah? It's because it's the seventh month on the calendar. Shana Tova Devorah. How can it says month number 7, which is not month number 1. Month number 1 is Nisan, not month number 1. When we came out of Egypt, God said this will be the first of the months for you. So how is it number 7? How did that happen? Well, the Nisan, where we started counting the months, became a nation. We came out of Egypt, we came to Mount Sinai, and we started the first yearly cycle as a nation. Now, just as you have in America, you have a tax year, you have an education year, in all countries it's the same. You have a year designated from certain dates from one person to one place to another place to another place. So the first of the month is of the coming out of Egypt. That's for us. And it's also we use it for the counting of the Shemitah, the agricultural year. But why all of a sudden the first of Tishrei? Happy New Year. Well, according to the calendar calculations we've received from Hashem, Elul, the 25th day of Elul was the first day of creation. The first of Tishrei was the 6th day of creation, the day on which mankind was created. So this is the year 5,780 since the creation of Adam Rishon, the first human being. So we count our years in time because time was created for people, so we could count the years and know how old we are, and know all that kind of stuff to use on a calendar, because there's no other reason for time. With God, there is no time. He's infinite. So it was created for us when the first person was created on the 1st of Tishrei. So that's why we say Happy New Year, the 1st of Tishrei. So, and our calendars, they start from they start from the 1st of Tishrei. Although most printed calendars, they just go through. They're like 15-month calendars. They go through, and it's a big complicated thing. Don't make any difference. But every day there is something that we have to do, something we have to commemorate. Now we have a 2-day Rosh Hashanah celebration. And it's fun. We spend most of the day in Bet Knesset, in Shul, praising God, thanking Him, telling Him we'll be a better person in the coming year, kind of thinking about what we did wrong in the last year. How are we going to improve? See, there's many writings on what happens on that instant between the last day of Elul and the first day of Tishrei. What happens at the beginning of the year? Do things just continue on the way they were, or is there really something new that happens? Well, when we open up Genesis, we find out that God spoke and everything was created. He spoke it out, it was created, and each day there's something there. Well, on the 1st of Tishrei, the world was created. The whole of creation started. So according to what our sages teach us, At that instant, the changeover between the last day of Elul and the first day of Tishrei, now we don't feel it. It happens. It's an instantaneous thing. But the light from last year snuffs out, and a new light enters the world. Now, what do I mean by that? It's the revelation. What is light is God, and it's His revelation. And we're told once we get to the next level of life, there is no darkness, only light, because we're closer to Him, and He chases away all darkness. There won't be any darkness around. So as we go from that instant, it's just like so quick we don't even realize it. Last year's light stops. Everything stops, and it's like almost a new creation and a new light, a stronger light, because we're one step closer to total revelation of God with the Messiah coming, and our coming closer to the essence of God. And it gives us, and if we allow ourselves to open up to it, a stronger ability to have a better year and help other people receive some of this new light that came into the earth, that came into the world. So that's why we call it, since it was the first day of creation of man, we call it Happy New Year, Shana Tova. Now, Shana, which means year, comes from a root word, Lishanot, which means to change. So the word for year means to change, because every day, every minute, something's changing. So when we say Shana Tova, we're saying Happy New Year. May all your changes be good this year. May have a little more income, and may be more healthy, and your year be sweet, and maybe you can have some more grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever, We're just wishing good things for everybody. And then as soon as it's over, we start saying to people, instead of Shana Tova, Gemar Hatima Tova, a finishing signature in the book of life that is good. Because during these 10 days between now and Yom Kippur's fast, we are pleading with God in our prayers, not only for ourselves to have better and be better, but for the whole world. Not just for ourselves, but for the whole world to be better. And it says, according to our writings, that during this 10 days, God decides, and we pray this at least 5 or 6 times during the 10 days, He decides who's going to live, who's going to die, and how people are going to die. Actually, it goes through a whole list of how they're going to drown, they're going to burn, they're going to this, they're going to that. The decision is made. It's written down in the book of life. Now, it doesn't mean it's final, but it means that's what's going to happen if you don't do something to change it. And we go through a lot of lessons on how you can change different things, and maybe during the year we'll talk about it. But the thing is, we have control of what's going on around us by doing what Hashem wants us to do. But how do we get that control? We are people. I mean, so when someone says a person is not worthy, or they're born in sin or something like that, it's such a lie. We're creating the image of God, and He's given everything that He has given, all the powers He has given to us. We can't use it like He does because we don't have the mental capacity to do it. We're not God. And He gives us a choice on which direction to go. He didn't make us little cult creatures, and He didn't make us robots or puppets. The only example I can give of what He didn't make us is look at any animal. They live a life exactly the way God created it for them. They can't change it in any way, shape, or form. A cat is going to have a cat life, and an elephant's going to have an elephant life, and an emu is going to have an emu life. We can change things in our life if we want to, if we realize, and we need to. But He certainly didn't create us as victims. And he didn't create us as okay, you're destined to this life and you're destined to that life and and you have no control over it. You do have control. But how do you get this control? You guys have made the first step in connecting with the God of Israel, the Creator, the one who gives the power. And when someone connects with him, you get more power. He releases more to you. Your light becomes brighter here on earth because you're connecting more to his essence, which shines brighter. So how does a person learn what I'm supposed to do? Now, this has nothing to do with religion and religious practices. Understand what I'm about to tell you. This has only one thing to do, connecting with the Creator. So he hears your voice. He hears what you got to say. He hears it more clearly because you state it more clearly. You know, as an example, one of the first things, or the first thing we do in the morning when we get up and open our eyes is not thinking about, oh, what a day I got. Oh, I got a long car drive. Oh, I got to fix the lunches, get the kids out of the house. Oh, I can't believe the work I got piled on my desk. Most people open their eyes that way in the morning. I used to. But we have to train ourselves very carefully when we open our eyes in the morning. There's a prayer, and I've talked about it before. It's called Modeh Ani. It should be the first thought. I mean, even before you've opened your eyes, it's your first thought as you feel yourself waking up. And I'm going to read it in Hebrew, then I'm going to explain each word in English and Hebrew. It's real simple. It's Modeh Ani, Lefanecha Melech Hai V'Kayam, Shehachzarta Bi Nishmati B'Hamla, Rabba Imunatecha. That's very simple. In English, it says, I come before you, King, Hai, the living King, V'Kayam, the living and enduring King who exists. For you have returned to me my breath of life, your soul, with compassion, B'Hamla. And then the last, it's two words, Rabba Imunotecha, great is your faithfulness. And what you're saying is, great is your faithfulness in me, that I'm going to go out and do a good job today, that I'm going to connect people. Now, when we say it, the first one is modeh, or thank you. It really means more than that. It means I surrendered to you. Modeh Ani. It's surrender me, I. But in English, it's I surrender to you. And I'm coming to stand before you. You, God, the essence of all creation. You who are alive, the source of life, who is real, the Kayam, you're enduring, sustaining, unchanging you. For you have returned within me, or recharged me with my breath of life. You put my soul back into me. B'Hamla, with compassion and grace. And then there's a comma. And then, great is your faithfulness in me, you can put in parens. Because he chose to give you another day of life. He chose to give you another day working with him. He chose that. But if you think of this every single morning and you make it, you religiously say it, you faithfully repeat it every morning, you're focusing your morning and your whole day's connection with God. It's the first thought in your head, which if you don't just say it and throw it off and get out of bed and go, I'm going to have my cup of coffee and I'm going to turn on the news or do something like that. Think about it a minute. You've committed to your Creator that you're just going to be the best person you can be that day, and you thank him for giving you this next day, this new day. It is something that you should have printed out. It's okay to do it in English. Print it out. We'll put up. I'll put up a couple of different English versions on B'nai Noach connection with Israel and Torah for the Nations. So you can print it out. Have it by your nightstand. When you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, say this every single day. And this is essentially giving you your connection to God. What are you as a Noahide? What are you as a righteous of the nations? You earn this by doing this every day, by keeping your connection with God open. So I strongly suggest that you do every day. And there's another, you call it a prayer, call it a statement, you should do every single day, twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And this has been taught to people who are not Jews since about the 13th century, when they started getting questions about it. And you've all heard it, I don't know how many times. Shema Yisrael Adonai Elokeinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Now, why say this? It's doing two things. Again, it's a reminder for you who you're connected to and what's going on. It's a reminder to you. But it's also helping complete the work of creation. We're partners in creation with Hashem, with God. And when we say these words, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, it's not like, listen to me, Israel. It's hear, Israel. In other words, you're stating to all of Israel that you've joined with the God of Israel. Hear, listen to me, Israel. Here's the Lord our God. You're saying that the God of Israel is the Lord and God. And then when you say is one, what you're doing is drawing together all of Israel, which includes the righteous of the nations, includes the Jewish people, includes everybody. You're counting yourself in the group. And the day will come when his name, everybody will recognize he is one. We say on in some of the prayers on that day, he and his name will be one. He is who he is right now. The minute that you acknowledge that, he becomes one for you, but not for the whole world. When you acknowledge that he's in control of everything and he's the only one that has control, and we can decide to go with him or not go with him, life or death, like it says in Deuteronomy. Choose life or choose death. So when you say, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, you're making a huge statement to him and to yourself. It's just not words written on a piece of paper. And this originally came from when Jacob was on his deathbed, and he gathered the tribes in front of him. And it's not written there because the attention wasn't supposed to be put on this, but the first time it's supposedly stated, when he brings his boys together, he's going to give them the end time prophecies of what's going to happen. In the end, he can't do it. He tells them other things. But he says, are you listening? And they said to him, listen, Israel. That was his name, right? The Lord is our God, and he's one, and we're one group. It started there. And then it was actually written down further on because the attention was supposed to be given to the 12 tribes of Israel, it was to be given to the whole world. So that's where it was written. I can't remember the first place it was written. I had it written down, and I don't know what happened to the little notepad I had here. It's been one of those few days. Anyway, thank you. I surrender before you, my King, who is alive, source of being, who exists, who is sustaining, that you've returned within me or recharged me with my breath of life from my soul, with compassion and grace. Great is your faith in me. You open your day that way. We just imagine, you realize the Creator has faith in you. So you're going to go through the whole day and you want to make sure He still has faith in you. What does it mean to have faith in you? That He's going to know that you're going to faithfully do what He wants you to do. And then the Shema ties it all together. What you actually are doing because of who you are. You are helping the world come to the completion of creation by helping God finish creation. By making the whole world will be aware of who He is and will turn to Him, and the whole world will be Israel. There won't be anybody around that isn't Israel. So people think that what they're doing is some kind of religion stuff or something. It's not. You're helping complete creation, God's creation. And you are an important part of that creation, or you wouldn't be here. So as you do these things and train yourself and just in these two things every single day, and your trust in God, not your faith in Him, because you now know who He is, so you trust Him more. You can know who somebody is and not trust them, right? You trust Him more, and as that trust grows, so does your thirst for other things. Some of the knowledge that goes deeper in and learning about the Torah and learning about other instructions. But He doesn't request anything more from you than that. That's up to you. He makes it very simple to follow Him, be one with Him, help Him complete creation. If you're able to do more, He loves it, but you don't get put down for the amount of learning you have or anything like that. You know, they tell a Jew you're supposed to study Torah every day, in the morning and the evening, and you should study it for 3 hours. Okay, that's already 6 hours, right? But God says, take 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening. If you can't get any other time in, or you're driving or you're doing something, driving your ox cart or driving a car, think about Torah, or you're walking down the street. That's what keeps you connected. Because we sometimes become disconnected during the day, and things happen that kind of pull us away from the connection. So if you start your day with Modeh Ani, thank you, Hashem, or I've surrendered to you, Hashem, any way you want to look at it. And then you say the Shema twice a day. You're reinforcing to yourself and to Him your connection. That's why we do the Shema twice a day, in morning and evening prayer. Mincha afternoon prayer, we don't do it. But twice a day we do it, morning and evening. Of course, there's a lot of other prayers we do too, but we're required. It was funny when I was getting ready to go to Rosh Hashana, first day and second day, they're pretty darn long services. There was a lot of praying, a lot of Torah reading. And women sometimes come, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they only come for the shofar blowing. Sometimes they come for the Torah reading and the shofar blowing. And I was getting dressed and getting ready to walk out the door, and I turned to Sharon and said, "Phew, you're lucky today." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I don't have any choice. I have to go and do these things because God tells me if I want to walk with Him, this is what I'm going to do." But the women get a break. You don't have to do all these time-bound commandments. Just the men do. That's what keeps us in line, I guess. So, and each day was like 6 hours straight of prayer. Now, I don't care who you are, 6 hours straight of prayer and reading and stuff, even with the singing we do in between or during the prayer and all that, it's still a long stretch. It's a long stretch to just do that, or to just do anything for 6 hours is a tough thing. But you kind of get used to it. I remember when I first returned to God, I'd be looking at my watch all the time. Oh, how long are these going to be? Well, there's some extra singing. That's just to make it longer, right? Now when I do it, okay, it goes pretty quick. It's not too bad. So anyway, that's just an aside in my thinking. So if you do those two things every single day, I'm going to, as we go along, I'll give you more things to do. But if you do those two things every single day, it keeps it wakes you up with your connection. It gives you a purpose for the day. What's my purpose for the day? Staying connected with the Creator. Staying connected with my King, my Father. And you can feel the connection. And it's a great thing to feel. And whether you're Jewish or you're not Jewish, it doesn't make any difference. When you turn to the God of Israel, He wants that connection with you. And it isn't like the Jews are something special. They got 613 things they got to do. He just chose us to teach the world how to do it. So we have to learn more detail. We have to learn detail is one of them, and the deeper meanings of things. You can't teach something if you don't know the meaning of it. And so we go down into the deeper meanings of things, which anybody's allowed to do if they want to. And so it's not like, oh, yeah, I chose you because you're something special, or nothing like that. He just gave us a whole much more hard work. But it's, again, helping to complete His creation. And this is the job that He created us for. And the other 99.8% of the world, He created for other things. But for us to show people how to connect with Him. That's so important, to be connected with Him. He needs you. A king can't be king without his subjects. Even God can't be king if He doesn't have subjects. He needs you. He needs you as part of His creation to help complete creation. So there's not a person that is born that isn't needed by God. So don't ever, anybody says, I'm worthy and I got to do this and I got to do that, tell them no. You wouldn't have been created if God didn't need you, and that makes you worthy already. Nobody's an accident. They're here for a reason. And we'll get into talking about the how to figure out what your job is for Hashem. We were joking about it tonight, actually. A person can be born and live 80 years for one reason, because sometime during that 80 years, he was simply born to help somebody else with one thing, in his connection with God. That's how important each person is to God. So some of us do more, and we're given other duties to do. Some of us work, like Angela, with addictions, and some of us work with teaching, like I do, and Terry with teaching, and whatever. Any other job they have, like Troy works at Pepsi-Cola, and I don't know where anybody else works, but while you're created to do that job, wherever you are, there's people there you're going to help, you're going to come in contact with, and you don't know who that one person is that you were born to take care of, born to help. I remember tonight at dinner, we were talking about it. We were doing our break fest. We were talking about opportunities to do the right thing. And I remember a little thing I put together many, many years back. But let's say somebody walks out of a grocery store with 1 million bags in their hand and they're juggling them around. That person's walking out of that store in front of your eyes at that time because God's tapping you over the shoulder and saying, come on, I got something for you to do. Go help that person. It be something that simple. And you can say, well, no, I'm too busy. I just got in my car and backed out of the parking space. I don't want to go back park again. Okay, you had the opportunity to do something for God, and he's going to give it to somebody else because the person's going to get the help they need. So who gives that to somebody else, and what is that a blessing? When God says, here, do something for this person and help them, he says, I want to bless you. Because when you do something good for someone else, you get a blessing from God. And it's called a mitzvah. You're doing a mitzvah. So when you see somebody's got a flat tire, you stop on the side of the road and help them. Anything. You guys, somebody sees with the hood up and they're just standing there looking at under the hood, and you got jumper cables in your car, and so you pull over and say, hey, you need a jump, what do you need? You're not there to solve every problem, but sometimes people just need a little help. And when we go by it and don't do it, we're missing an opportunity to make our connection stronger with God, because it's happening in front of you for a reason. And that's it. God wants you to connect and do something for that person. So that's another way to connect in a way with God. When I was selling cars, I used to stop. Anybody had car trouble, I'd stop and help. And I always left them my business card. I got customers that way. But I was doing it for the wrong reason, but I did it. It was just like advertisement for me selling cars. I was selling Chevrolet back then in the USA. Okay, I want to move on to another. Anybody have any questions about those two prayers I mentioned and the connection topic with God? This is an important thing. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Terry.
I don't know if Scotty's, I messaged Scotty privately. He's got an interesting story about the connection that he shared last week. I don't know if he wants to share it tonight or not. Can you hear me, Scotty?
I can. I was going to ask Pesach something about that. Now, you talking about the AC position?
Yeah, well, no, the one where you shared about the neighbor that needed work on an AC and they couldn't get people in their church to help out. That story you told last week has been on my mind all week. It's been really cool.
Yeah, that was my brother-in-law and sister's neighbor, and I didn't know it, but their AC had been out for a couple of months. And of course, here in East Tennessee, we've had, if it wasn't 100, it missed a good opportunity to be 100. And but my sister just mentioned to me in passing that this family got several children, and that they couldn't get anybody from their church to help. He was out of work, and the ones from their church that was going to help was going to charge them. And so I snuck out there early the next morning, and to make a long story short, got the AC running. But this family goes, I don't want to the apostolic church, but now he's been talking to me every day since then, because he felt something different off of me. Is that what you were talking about, Terry? Is that the story? Something I was going to ask Pesach. I generally, when Hashem leads me to do that, and my wife and I attempt to do those things all the time, because we want to make a difference in the people around us, whether we know them or not. But I want to ask Pesach, we're not supposed to brag about those things, are we? I mean, to use them in a story to get somebody else to react and do charity or to do help for people is one thing, but to do something and like broadcast it out. Are we supposed to do that? Broadcast it out? Did I cover what you was talking about, Terry?
Yeah, and I personally I don't think you're broadcasting it out. It was an
True.
it was an inspiration for me.
Well,
And
when I talk to people about what I do it. I want to do it in an inspirational form. But then, of course, sometimes in our past lives, we've met those people that do stuff just for the recognition of it.
yeah,
And some of the greatest things that we do in secret, for Hashem. Some of the greatest charity work, some of the greatest do you know what I'm talking about? Am I covering that right, Pesach? Do you know what I'm talking about?
You're absolutely speaking right about it. And to share it in a group like this is fine, but just, to share it with somebody to pat yourself on the back is absolutely wrong.
Right. That's what now I understand, Terry. I think I've actually shared that story with a couple of different groups and a couple of other groups for the position of sparking something in them to inspire something in them to go out and make a difference. But I've also met other people that just love to broadcast it. Look what I did. So I was thinking of that when you was talking, Pesach. What do you think about those people? And I'm not talking about myself or what Terry wanted me to bring up, but what about those people that do a charity or do something and then you hear about it for the next 10 months?
I don't care whether where their walk is, even if they're Jewish. You're doing charity, but it's absolutely bottom line, lowest level of charity you can possibly do. There's 8 levels to charity, and the very worst reason that you could do it is just so you can pat yourself on the back and tell other people about it. But the point is, it got done for the other person. So it's still considered a mitzvah, it's still considered, but the reason for it, and there's kind of gradations. The most highest grade of any kind of helping somebody is you don't know who you helped, and they don't know who helped them. That's the highest level. The second level down from that is essentially knowing who you're helping, but they don't know you. But the very highest level is helping somebody. Now, what you did and the story you're telling, there's 2 sides of the story. There's a very positive side. There's also a very, very negative side to that story. The negative side is he's a member of an organization that he couldn't get help from people from. That they talk about loving your neighbor and they talk about, but it's all this kind of talk. There's no action. A mitzvah is thought, speech, and action all combined. If the action is missing, you haven't completed anything. People can preach love all day long, but if they don't help someone, if they don't put it into action, it doesn't mean anything. It's incomplete. When you went and helped these people and got their excuse me. Let me turn my little fan off over here. You did a great thing for this family, and you didn't even know. I mean, he's your neighbor, but you don't belong to the same group he belongs to, where you should have gotten some help, even if somebody just called up an air conditioner mechanic and had him come over and fix it. Just a quick story that's like similar. My wife and I have some friends. They're older people. I should say older. Wow, he's the same age I am. But his wife makes challah covers and all kinds of table things for Shabbat, all that kind of thing. And her computer is her lifeline to make money. They don't have any other income coming in. And her computer broke. And he didn't know what to do. And he asked some people to help him, and nobody could help him. And so I just called up a friend of mine who's a computer guy. I said, do me a favor, go pick up the computer, fix it, and give it back to him. And I'll pay it, whatever it is, which is what happened. My computer guy told the guy who was doing it, which I didn't tell him not to, but it's the same thing. They got back up on track, and their income's coming back in now because their computer's working. When you stand up for someone and you get moving and do, that's the important thing. And you can talk about doing all you want, which is the negative side of both of our stories. Although some people have tried to help and couldn't do it in my story, but people didn't do it in an organization that they belong to. I don't care what organization it is. It's just not good. But when you do it, and you're doing it, that's when you share light. Especially with a person like this, where an organization he belongs to and people he gets together with once a week or whatever, don't help. It just, you've probably opened the door for him. He's going to talk to you, and you're going to, eventually he's going to ask you some questions.
He is already asking. Keep him in mind, Pesach. He is already asking.
That's good, and he felt that. I don't know. The only way I put it is this way, and it's not exactly what I mean, but it's so hard sometimes to get thought into words. That he felt your connection with God was stronger than the connection to other people he was around with God. So when you do that action, whether a person recognizes that they're feeling that or not, their neshama, their soul, their God, the part of them is connected to God, feels it. And when that connection feels it, it can pass information to the brain that then comes down out of the mouth, and people start asking questions. Not always do they do it. Not always do they, lots of people just say, hey, thanks, and mosey on down the street. And God will bless you because you bless this person. I'm going to give another quick little story on the same vein. Where I used to live, I had a balcony on the back of my apartment, and I used to sit out there and drink a cold beer and have a sandwich or something. And I saw this van pull up, and a lady got out of it, and she was just this little old lady, a little hunched over, and they put about 3 or 4 big sacks on the street and drove away. So whoever was in that van got her that far anyway. And I saw her picking them up and trying to pick them up, and obviously she was walking someplace else. So I went downstairs, and I saw some people walk by her, and nobody decided to help her. So I went downstairs, and I went over to her. I said, can I help you with something? She said, sure. I got to get these up to my apartment. And it's 4th floor and a building over there. I said, okay, let me help. And I picked up most of the bags, and boy, they were heavy. It was heavy for me, and I'm a big guy. I don't know how she'd have got them up. Anyway, we walked, and it was about a mile walk from where she lived. And we got up into her apartment, and I put them on the floor in her kitchen. And the lady started crying. And I said, what's wrong? She says, nothing's wrong. She says, I'm so moved by your help that I want to give you a blessing. And she put her head, the little old lady puts her hand up on my head and gives me a blessing for health. Now, to me, that was the biggest payoff I could have gotten for helping this lady. But you never know what's at the end of the road of what you're doing, kind of blessing you're going to get from God. Because God had that lady bless me. It wasn't, he put it in her heart to bless me. And it's happened more than once where that's happened, where I've helped people with things. Of course, the Jews here, especially the religious ones, we're used to giving people blessings all the time. So there's a thank you. But every time you're in a situation like that, you're going to be blessed one way or another, whether it's God's going to bless you his own self in some way, or the other person's going to give you a blessing that comes from God. But we don't do it for the blessing. We do it because God says, okay, it's your turn to help somebody. And if you pass it, think about it. If somebody blesses you for what you do for them, and you didn't do it for them, you would miss that blessing. And where does the blessing come from? It comes from God. So it's up to you to either receive or not receive that blessing. You know, sometimes you just think it's an annoyance to help somebody. But it's not. God's going, okay, your turn. Come on, I got something for you to do. And the only reason you got to do it is because he wants to bless you or something. But he doesn't, not everything God does is all his good is revealed good until it gets to the end of the line. And then the goodness of it is revealed, what he does. Because everything he does is good. And he tells us that in his 6 days of creation. He doesn't say, well, I created this and it was bad. He says it's good. Okay, I want to roll over to another subject now, unless anybody has any more questions. How many of you guys read the book of Proverbs? Angela, anybody else? Good. I want to explain something about, well, if I get my mouse to work here, about the book of Proverbs, because it's really, really important that you understand something as you read it. It's a great thing to read. You should make it part of your daily readings in helping you keep connection with God. If you don't, you should read a psalm a day and a proverb a day, at least. Let's see, Proverbs has 31, so if you read one every day through the month, the first day of the month, read Proverb chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, just daily. It doesn't take long to do it. But it gives you so much to think about. But I need to explain a few things about reading it. You know, everybody knows the Song of Songs, right? Solomon's song. A lot of people read it and say, I can't read this stuff. It's a bunch of pornography. Well, they don't know how to read it. They don't know how to look at it. Well, if you read the Proverbs, Mishlei in Hebrew, and you don't know how to relate to things, you can't get the deep meaning to it. So, what have I said today? Do Modani, do the Shema, read one proverb a day. How long can it take you to do that? And one psalm, although we read 5 psalms a day because there's 150 of them every day. But if you just read one psalm, if you got your book, the Proverbs, open to Proverbs chapter 1, verse 1, it says, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, are. Now, understand that he was king of Israel until he was God said, okay, you messed around too much, 1,000 wives, and that was his business between him and God. But he became a blind beggar in Jerusalem going around talking to people, whose name was Kohelet. And that's the Hebrew name for the book, the Proverbs. No, Mishlei is Proverbs. He has another book called Kohelet. Okay. What it says is the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Now, the first part, the Proverbs of, this means all his words are illustrations and allegories. Now, this is very important to understand as you go through and read. he compares Torah to the good woman in all the Proverbs. He's not talking about a woman, he's talking about Torah. And every time he says harlot, he's talking to somebody that's in idolatry or not following Torah. So as you read it, you don't think of a woman harlot and a woman good woman, you think of Torah and you think of idolatry. But he uses those as symbolism. Verse 2 says, to know wisdom and discipline, to comprehend the words of understanding. Okay, to know wisdom and discipline. He states these proverbs to make known to people wisdom and discipline. And that you are to, well, this is an old English, they toil in the Torah, which is wisdom, discipline, and understanding. That's the only place you can get wisdom, discipline, and understanding is Torah, nowhere else. What is this commentary I'm reading? It's Rashi. Rashi gives us what we call the simple basic commentary on everything he does. These things that are attached to the Torah and to the Haftorah and to the Proverbs, most people look at it as this is children level type teaching. But most of us in the world need this kind of teaching to start with. So to know wisdom and discipline, to comprehend the words of understanding, is to get you to toil in Torah, which only Torah can give you wisdom, discipline, and understanding. Verse 3 says to receive the discipline of wisdom, righteousness, justice, and equality. Okay, the righteousness denotes charity from his money. Justice means to judge honestly, and equality denotes compromise. Compromise is a big word. We have to compromise things. We're supposed to walk the middle road, not too much to the right, not too much to the left, but the middle road in all things. Verse 4, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. What he's saying here is the Proverbs are, they're simple, and you can take it like everyday life, like in the Farmer's Almanac or something. You know, in the Farmer's Almanac, they put all these words of wisdom and other things like that. Benjamin Franklin and all his sayings and stuff like that. Give knowledge to the youth. Youth, all of us, when we're young, are devoid of knowledge. We don't have any learning yet. So it gives us knowledge, and then it gives us thoughts that we can think about, or discretion. Let the wise man hear and increase learning. The understanding man shall acquire wise counsels. Okay, let the wise man hear. Those are the Proverbs. You hear them, they go in. To increase, it increases your wisdom. It gives you more learning. Then it says, the understanding man shall acquire wise counsel. This is the one who hears the wisdom in these words, and the understanding man who has knowledge superior to the knowledge of the wise man, because he knows how to delve into the idea, derive one idea from another, and he adds to what he has just heard. In other words, it triggers something in you to think about. It triggers something to help you connect the dots with different things. It's teaching you a way of thinking. You start putting things together, but from simple little things. Not don't have to be all these. You don't have to study Kabbalah, and you don't have to go study the Zohar. This is simple, everyday things that God wants from us. And you also have to understand an allegory and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. Now, what is Hashem saying here through Kohelet, through King Solomon? That you direct your attention to understanding the verses through two ways. two methods, the allegory and the figure, he says. You should understand what he compares to the figure, but you don't neglect the figure itself. For that too requires understanding. When he says to save you from a strange woman and a foreign one, he's talking about idolatry. It's an allegory for this figure. And you have to understand that it's idolatry. You have to understand that it's not good. You have to understand that the things, from what he's saying, you have to understand that to think this way is not good. Then he says, the words of the wise and their riddles. Those who interpret Torah metaphorically, full verses and elliptical ones, allusions, comparisons, and riddles. So it's everything we read about Torah from the sages, from Rambam, from everybody, has this comparisons and allegories and allusions. It isn't just black and white. There are things there, but you have to see how they connect. But you have to see how they connect, not the way you think they can understand. And to talk about that, I want to go over to, let's see where, I'm going to jump ahead to Proverbs 3:6. It says, 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely upon your understanding. Know him in all your ways and he will direct your paths. And then it says, don't be wise in your own head, but we all have heard that before. Trust, verse 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely upon your understanding. Rashi says this means, and this is Rashi saying this, squander your money to seek for yourself a teacher from whom to learn and do not rely on your own understanding. Don't get it out of your own head. Get it taught from a teacher who can teach you what it is. Know him in all your ways, and he will direct your path. Go ahead, Terry.
So, like my commentary says, apply this study of Torah, trust in Hashem, spend extravagantly in the search of a teacher. Do not spend exclusively on your own understanding. So there's a question that's been going around, I've seen some of the groups about, Noahides picking, rabbis and teachers and stuff and different ones. And so really this is right here is in support of that. If I understand correctly, to understand Torah, you need to have a Torah teacher. So I know some Noahides that don't. They don't feel like they need to rely on Israel at all. They got their English and that's good enough. But that really goes against the wisdom of King Solomon, right?
Absolutely, the wisdom of God. We're told through Pirkei Avot that we're supposed to choose ourselves a rabbi and always be close enough to him that his dust of his feet chokes us. That's how close we're supposed to be to that rabbi.
Right. But this is applicable. This understanding of verse 5 is applicable for the righteous of the nations.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is what religion does. Somebody gets an idea and say, this is what I think about it. And a bunch of other people say, oh yeah, I think that too. So let's get together. They don't care what God's saying about it. So that's how you make a religion. Now, when it comes, I got to clarify a little bit, because although there's a lot of rabbis teaching about this, and a lot of rabbis hooking it up with environmental stuff and all kinds of other stuff, has no business. this is, I mean, even like I mentioned, the Divine Code is a great book, but nobody is required to learn that book to be a Noahide. If you have questions, it's a good reference book, and if you want to get into the depth of it, okay, it's a reference book. But everything you need, you can get from a teacher that understands and has worked with this type of groups for many, many years. You know, I've been working with non-Jews since year 2000, been through many transitions and learnings, and there are other people out there just like me. And then I saw an interview with somebody the other day. I don't mention the name of the person who did the interview, but I was interested in listening to it, but it got so complicated for me, I'm wondering how anybody else understood it. And I'm Jewish, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I've been studying stuff for the Jewish side of it for like 4 or 5 years. And I had a little problem following what he was saying, because as teachers to Jews, it's a different way of teaching. There's an assumption of certain knowledges. And as people are coming out of wherever they are and hooking with the God of Israel, everybody has to start somewhere. God says the starting place is, know I'm God. Just know I'm God. And that's what's going to happen, and it's prophesied that the time will come when everyone will know who God is, which is a big thing for God and for people, each individual person. But those groups that don't allow Jews in, those groups that don't want to be taught, those groups that delete things that Jewish teachers put in, stay away from them. In plain English. Don't even get curious to see what they're saying. Just stay away. What happens is you might hear oh, I heard that good, and it was this group over here. How do you know it was so good? Well, it rang a bell with me. Oh, you're working with your own understanding. You're going to find stuff on the internet that's 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old. It was written by people and just left up there on the internet. It's a bunch of stuff you shouldn't read. Not about Noahides, not about... When I first started researching Noahides on the internet, everything I found was negative. They thought it was a cult created by the Jews to make slaves out of the non-Jews and things like that. And so I didn't understand a lot of it till I went deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And I learned what websites to go to and what not to go to. Just because you find some information, it sounds great, you should always see who put it up there and how long ago it was put up there. If a website hasn't been updated in 2 or 3 or 4 years, you don't want to go near the place anyway. The reason why is because it hasn't been updated is nobody else cared to look at it, and the people that were doing it lost interest. I keep seeing some articles about a Sanhedrin and Sanhedrin rulings here in Israel that's like 10 or 11 years old. Nobody bothers updating it because nobody's listening. But these people, wow, look what they said 10, 11 years ago. And if you sat and talked to Jim Long for a while, I don't know if it went back to any of the history that he went through or not, but you'll find that there's an interesting history there with the Noahides.
He shared quite a bit with a lot of it with some of us guys, personally. Of course, he gave a document. He gave us a video documentary he done. He showed it and we discussed it. And I got his book, Blood Brothers: The History of Israel's Enemy, which starts out with Jacob and Esau and then falls back to Cain and comes forward. Really, really good stuff. Like you're saying, bringing out the different histories and stuff. And I'm at this point where Abraham had to flee. He was fleeing from Nimrod, and he went to Noah and Shem's house. And
Right.
it's simple little nuggets. I love it. And he brings up, he says, you do know, I'm paraphrasing, like, you do know when he was sitting at that table with Noah and Shem, he was sitting with people who knew Adam,
Yeah.
and it's like, you don't really think about this stuff, oh, wow, and so, yeah. And then he mentions, I haven't got to research it yet, and it was brought up several times to me over the day I was there about some writings that they found by Isaac Newton, who really appears to have been a closet Noahide because of, the stuff that was Christianity was torturous at the time if you wasn't a Christian in his day and time. But he's evidently done some writings that was found about the 7 laws. And so I'm kind of going to look into that and just for my interest's sake.
He also spent 40 or 50 years of his life trying to figure out the mathematical equations in Daniel. Never figured them out. There's a whole big thing you can read about those. Let me tell you, people think this Noahide thing is new, but it's not. The first ever yeshiva or teaching of God's word on this earth, on this side of the flood, was the school of Shem and Ever. I'm sorry. that was in a cave right up the street from where I am now. That Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob studied there with Shem. The messages that came from it came from Adam. And then the message, some of the clarifications that God gave Noah, they all studied from Shem. Shem had an incredibly long life. If you look at the timeline and the people he knew during his life. Go ahead, Terry.
Scotty's got his hand raised.
Okay.
I just got to say, Pesach and Terry, this is probably one of the best studies. I mean, the information is coming out so fast, it's about to take my breath away. But I want, if you would, before the close of tonight, is there a position of vetting your teacher? When you find a rabbi, is there a position of, should we vet the rabbis we listen to? And I know you kind of talked a little bit about that, but how do we do that?
That's a very good question. And let me just finish up on the Noahide thing, and then we'll go into that. It's a good question. Glad you asked it. Okay. Noahides have a history to go back to Adam. Just like mankind does, and just like the Jews do. And the school that Shem and Ever set up was in hundreds of years. It was in process. Like I said, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all learned from that. Other people learned at that school. The laws, the 7 universal laws that God gave to mankind. He gave them again at Mount Sinai to Moses to make sure that it was part of the package we had to teach to the world, Torah. So the history of the Noahides is long, and a lot of their history is clouded because they were, as much as the Jews were persecuted, the Noahides were too, and a lot of them, because they didn't believe in Allah or in the Christian God or something like that, they were all just killed. But there was always somebody bringing it forward. And maybe someday somebody will have money to sit and just do all the research and go through all the documents and go to the libraries they need to go to and get all the information and put it all together so you can see the actual history of it. But it's not something new. It's older than Christianity. Look, being a Jew is the oldest walk on earth, except for being an Noahide. People don't realize that. When you put us on a list of religions, and because people classify being a Jew or Judaism as a religion, we're the oldest religion. But we're not the oldest path in walking with God. You have the Noahide path, and then you have the Code of Hammurabi, which is very close to what Torah teaches. Somebody got an insight and wrote a lot of it down, although there's some of it wrong, some of it right. But there's nothing new anywhere. People had this in their head. God was allowing people to see it at certain times all through history. And the Noahide, there you go. I took the path less traveled. It made the difference. There you go. Robert Frost. Yeah, I read your thing. They don't realize the history and the fullness and the richness of the road they're on. They're not on a religious road. Neither being a Jew is not a religious road. It's God's road. Simple. It's the reality of things. Just like I said before, it's not a religion, it's a reality. People don't think about it. Well, you get involved in this newfangled thing? Newfangled. It's a couple thousand years older than what you believe in, anybody else on this earth. You've come back to the road, to the truth. You've cleared all the debris out of the way. Remember, God says, I punish the sons to whatever generation for the sins of the fathers. What does that mean? If you can't break out of what you're in and come and be with me, you're going to get the same punishment your dad did because he didn't break out of it. All it takes is one generation to wake up and say, boing, hey, wow, look at this. Let's do it this way instead of this way that we learned from our fathers. And everything just goes forward. And that's what happens as we get closer to the Mashiach. And you guys are on the forefront of this whole thing as righteous of the nations. And it doesn't take a whole lot of work to stay on that, to hold on to that title. A Jew, to be a righteous Jew, you got to be born that way, really. A tzaddik. We can all be what we call the Benoni, the one that walks down the middle road, and sometimes we're good, and sometimes we're not so good. But because it's an easier path for the rest of the world, once you say, okay, yes, God, I know you're the only God, you're my creator, and I'm not going to take your name in vain, I'm not going to have idols, da. As long as you do the other five, as long as you're a good person, you're there. You know, the word holy in English has a connotation. I think I talked about this last week maybe, or maybe it was in a different group. Everybody thinks holy. Ooh, man, holy with God and all that. Holy means dedicated to. It means something that is used only for that purpose. If you dedicate yourself to God, you become holy. You're only used for his purposes on this earth. If you dedicate your house to him, your house becomes holy. The Bet HaMikdash was a holy place, was designated only to God. God is holy because he's dedicated to us, to human beings. The word in Hebrew, holy, comes from the word, it's kadosh in Hebrew, comes from the verb likadesh, which means to dedicate. That's what it means. So we use the same word. If I'm going to dedicate tonight's teaching to someone, either to their yard site, to their anniversary of their death, or dedicate it to them because they're sick and we're hoping God will heal them. When you dedicate something like that, in Hebrew, likadesh means the same thing as kadosh. You say, kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot. Holy, holy, holy is the God of hosts. Why is he kadosh, kadosh, kadosh? Because he's dedicated to the people that are connected to him. The Lord of hosts. Yes, Angela?
I have to go. My son is here.
God bless you. See you next week.
Bless you.
Bye-bye. Welcome, Dale. So anyway, Scotty wanted to know, how do you vet a rabbi? There's a couple of things you can look for when you go to find a teacher. You want somebody that's teaching something in a way you can understand it. In other words, if the teacher sounds too complicated, or let's say he uses a lot of Hebrew words in his teaching, you don't know what they mean, and he's not giving you the English for them, or in other words, you have to be comfortable listening to him. You can't be thinking about, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? And gee, I didn't understand the last 6 sentences. So the first thing is communication. Can you put it in your head and it gives you something to meditate and think about? Or are you still trying to figure out what he said in the first place? That's the first vetting process. The second vetting process is you look for things like someone who teaches negative or against something else is not a person you want to learn how to be positive from. And it borders on the whole thing of lashon hara, or the bad tongue. You don't have to tell anybody something else is bad to try to make your things better. You want someone who can pretty much stay on topic. And there's a lot of teachers out there that Jewish teachers, that people hook up to because they teach in the same way the people in the churches teach. It's like, what do you call it? Hellfire and brimstone or something like that, sulfur and brimstone, whatever. And they're the ones that teach you, this is what God wants from each and every one of you. He wants to love your neighbor as yourself, and he wants you to not do anything to anybody that you don't want done to yourself. When people preach negativism, God doesn't teach negativism, only positive, only good. Now, a rabbi, understand, just simply means teacher. So whether there is no what we call smicha, or covering, for somebody teaching Noahides. You can't go and learn and take a test and say, okay, now you're a rabbi for Noahides. It doesn't happen. You can go be a rabbi for family purity. You can be a rabbi for kosher and non-kosher. You can be a rabbi for the laws of Shabbat. You can be a rabbi for a lot of things, but there's no course you can take that says, you're now a rabbi, so you have coverage to teach Noahides. There is no such thing. So anyone that teaches it is doing his own research, going back in hundreds of years, up to 1,000 years, going through the books written by the Jews over time, looking for conversations between Jew and non-Jew, a king and a rabbi, trying to learn the things that have already been said. Like I said to you today, say the Shema twice a day. This is nothing new. One of our sages called the Chidah told it to somebody in the 13th century. It was a letter that was asked by a non-Jewish person. Should he say the Shema? They were asking the same questions back then. I mean, what was that, 8 centuries ago? 800 years ago. They're asking the same questions. There's nothing new under the sun. And the sage says, yes, say it twice a day. So what we have to do is we're teaching this pathway that God wants. We have to go find the information. We have to look for it. And we have to keep it positive. So if somebody wants to put things into negative, I don't listen to them anyway. I mean, even very few rabbis do that I know, but a lot of people go into the negative on stuff. I don't listen to it. God said everything's good. He created everything good. Every person created is good. Everything he created is good. Every rock is good. Every weed is good. A scorpion is good. Wait a minute, scorpion? I mean, I see a scorpion taking a walk on the sidewalk out here. I just walk the other way, but God said it's good. I don't know why. I can't think like he thinks, but he says it's good. I'm not going to be negative about it. So, Scotty, yeah, you can learn from a lot of different people, but you always have to. You don't take even the things I say. If you think there's a doubt in your mind, research it. I mean, I make mistakes too, but I try to keep everything as positive as I can anyway. But yeah, go ahead, Terry.
One of my early teachers taught us that a good teacher points the way and then gets out of the way.
Exactly right.
And so that's I've always remembered that in my mind. Like, one of my first early teachers when I was studying for conversion, he would teach me things, and then he goes, "Okay, now it's your turn. Learn from it and go."
Well, now this is actually a very basic way of learning here in our yeshiva in the schools here. It's called Hebrusa. When you read something, you learn something, and then you sit down with a study partner, and you read the same thing, and you discuss what you're reading. And somebody might say, "Well, it means this," and someone says it means that. And the other person says, "Wait a minute, it can't mean that because it means this." And it's a constant rehashing and hashing. But for some people, as you learn, it's something new for you and for your partner that you're learning from. People spend their whole lives reading the Babylonian Talmud and the Gemara. I can't do that. I'm not an attorney. I don't want to be an attorney. I don't want to read the old court cases. If I have a question, I just go to a rabbi who has coverage on that thing and say, "Okay, what about this and this? What do I do?" Like, we had a fan on the wall that was swiveling in our shul for Rosh Hashana, and it kept blowing on me, and it was annoying me. It was blowing on the back of my neck. And it would flip the page of my prayer book. So I said to him, I said, "Can I stop it from swiveling back and forth?" He said, "Just go up and pull the black string." I said, "But it's Shabbat." "Hey, Shabbat. We're not supposed to work on Shabbat." He says, "Well, that's a mechanical thing up there, that it's not a digital thing. And it's just like if you were to had a fan that was blowing, you wanted to have it blow on you or blow off of you, you can turn it with your hands. So all you're doing is telling it not to go back and forth, and it's okay to do it because it's a mechanical thing." Okay, well, I accept it because he's a rabbi. He's also an expert in halakha. So when I first wanted to do it, I was there with the Gabbai, or the manager of the Beit Knesset, the shul. And he says, "No, we can't do it. It's on Shabbat, and it's probably violates Shabbat." See, the Gabbai wasn't an expert in that, but the guy I asked was. So he gave me the answer for it. And I didn't ask the question to different rabbis. I was just discussing with my Gabbai, who happens to be a rabbi, but just how should we do this? And he gave me the information he had. And then the expert said, "Okay, do this." I said, "Okie dokie." Back to you want people who can answer your questions in a plain way that you understand. And it's okay if, let's say you start off with one rabbi or one teacher, and you're learning the basics, and then you say, "Well, wait a minute, I need this to go a little bit further." And you ask a question of the teacher. If the teacher either puts it off or doesn't feel ready to teach it himself, then you have to find someone that goes on to the next level. It's always that way. I'm taking new classes now every Sunday, Monday. When I came back to being Jewish, into my Judaism, and started learning, I just kind of dove in the deep end where the classes were. And now one of the rabbis has opened up once a week classes on the beginnings of the stuff, how to study the Gemara and how to look at things from the beginning part. So even though I'm down in the deep end and I'm doing okay, I want to go back and say, okay, I want to learn from the beginning again and get everything refreshed. You always need that. So
There's always falling back to Genesis after Deuteronomy.
there you go. And you know what? The book of Leviticus, even though it's there and it's good to know, for someone that's not Jewish, there's no reason to go through all that pain. And I'm Jewish. It's just, oh yeah, this after this after this, book of Leviticus. Sure, before she converted, used to do Wednesday night Bible study with her kids at the house. They always skipped Leviticus. I said, why not? They don't need to know that unless you want them to understand something specific. So yeah, Genesis is and Exodus is good. It's telling a story, but it's the Jewish story. And Deuteronomy. But most people don't read the Kings, and they don't read Samuel, and they don't read prophecy, which is great. I love reading the prophecies. And the Proverbs, one a day, just read one a day. And Psalms, read one a day. And if you have a book with commentary like Rashi or something, read the commentary on the Psalm. Because sometimes what you read on the black and white isn't exactly what's being said there. Mishle, yeah. That's a good one.
This is, I broke down, I've been wanting it for years, but it seems like here lately, every time I pick something up, I'm reading it, it's quoting, Proverbs. But this is a 2-volume set, again, Art Scroll Tanakh series, which has wealth of commentary like you're talking about. Like I've got it for the Psalms as well.
Yeah.
And it just helps you understand things, Again, you're not understanding in your own understanding. It's you're
Right, exactly. Just give them a guide to learn from.
Yeah.
So, anybody have any other questions? Should we wrap up what everybody asked? Go ahead, Thomas. Unmute, Thomas, please.
You're ready, Thomas.
Sorry for keeping you up more. There's some Jewish people that live up north here in Michigan, but they call themselves, I believe, Heretite Jews. They believe in the written Torah, not the oral.
Yeah, the Karaite.
Yeah, Karaite, that's it.
All right. Yeah.
He said it's not Rosh Hashana, that it's Yom Torah.
Well, the actual Hebrew for it is Yom HaTruah, the day of the blowing of the shofar. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The Karaites were essentially a cult or sect of Judaism that disappeared a long time ago, so people have revived it. I still can't figure out how they do it, because if you don't have the oral Torah, there's just a lot of things you don't know what to do with in the written Torah.
Mm-hmm. And he's a very nice guy. He's even got a thing, his own little thing on YouTube for Torah study.
Yeah.
He just don't make sense to me, so I don't watch it.
That's good. If something that doesn't make sense, don't watch. But
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. There aren't too many Karaite Jews around. Few of them, they decided not to be from or Orthodox Jews or Haredi Jew, and they said, we don't need all the things the rabbis said. The minute somebody says they don't know what the rabbi said, they don't need this, they don't need that, this will go away from them. Go ahead, Terry.
I do have a a question pertaining to the, I'm just gonna say the proper way and know. I'm asking this to know how to handle a situation, or it's not a daily situation, but it does come up often, and I need to know how to handle this correctly as a Noahide. At my work, I mean, this is going to probably, fit for everyone that's here. At my job, we've got people who aren't doing their jobs and are shirking things they been asked to do, and they weasel their way out. And sometimes our manager, doesn't see these things that's going on. And me being, I've been team leads, I've run crews, I see things that the manager needs to know about what's going on. Is it incorrect to mention to the manager, so-and-so is not doing such and such, knowing that they're not doing their job, or, or shirking a part of their job? Is that a Lashon Hara issue? Not that you're wanting to get someone in trouble, but I guess I'm trying to explain myself right. Like today, we've got a young guy that just got started, and I know he didn't have a father to teach him to be self-motivated at work. I'm busy trying to get a couple of drivers out, the stuff that I do all day, and we have a gate to close every afternoon. And so I said, hey, go close the gate for me while I'm getting these drivers' paperwork ready to go out. And I turn around, he's disappeared, and when I'm closing the doors, I look and the gate's not closed. I have to run out and close it because we have to chain lock it and everything. And so I'm like, I had to tell my manager today, I said, hey, I asked so-and-so, they needed to do this, and this has happened several times. Or he comes back in the back and there's things that needs to be done, and he just walks around it but never takes the gumption to ask, hey, do I need to do something with this? So is this a Lashon Hara when you have things at work that people aren't doing their job, and the manager doesn't see it because he's in a different part of the building, to let him know this isn't being done?
Okay, that's a very good question. And it's a touchy one. If a person is directly under your control, and you
Well, they're not under my control, they're a fellow co-worker, but they're hiding and doing things. They're not, trying to get out of work, and the manager, of course, doesn't see it. And I'm not an assistant manager, but sometimes I'm just like, because of my age and I know what needs to be done, I step in and let the manager know, hey, certain things ain't being done. It needs to be done. But I didn't know if I was in the wrong as a Noahide doing something like that, or should I just keep my mouth shut?
To put it short, you keep your mouth shut. Why? Now, there's the question why. If a manager is a manager of a place and he doesn't see this stuff, that's his problem, not yours. A manager's supposed to know what's going on. If he doesn't, has just as little gumption as this guy that doesn't do stuff if he's not watching his whole picture. He doesn't deserve to be manager there. He's going to injure the business. He's going to hurt something by being manager there. But it's not up to you to tell anybody about anything unless you have a complaint about someone that works directly under you not following your direction or something.
I mean, he can't see everything that's going on. He has his own duties to do also. We're kind of like,
well,
we're kind of like his eyes. It's a warehouse.
Are we still hooked up? I guess. Yeah. Somebody move, wave.
We can hear you.
I don't know what happened.
Oh, you're froze on your end. I hear your voice, but I don't see you. Pesach's connection probably broke.
I love some of these facial expressions you all give when he asks for that. Especially Tom waiting.
Are we back?
Yeah. I think your signal, I think, just froze.
Everybody froze for me. I don't know how far you got into this, but unless it's your direct responsibility or unless it's life-threatening, the manager has to do his job. Look, in the same business you're in, I was a manager for 18 years. And I was in the car business and I ran auto parts warehouses and garages and dealerships and the whole bit. It's nobody's responsibility but the manager to make sure things are running right. And if the manager is not doing his job, then he doesn't know. If a manager, and he's just as loose in what he's doing as the guy that didn't lock the gate. If he doesn't know what's going on in his place, if he has an employee that's not producing properly, it's hiding and all that kind of stuff, if he doesn't know it, then if he doesn't know it, he's not doing his job. He's not doing what he's getting paid for. You're doing part of his job. You see where I'm coming from?
Right.
Now, a good question. Could Terry become a mentor to the coworker, give him advice on how to work, if the boy wants it? But if he's just there to collect a paycheck, and a lot of people come and collect paychecks, and they just want to see how little they can get away with, and how much they can get away with. Nothing you can do about it.
I see that a lot here lately. So I don't have any responsibility into correcting someone unless I'm over that person, like a supervisor or team lead or something. So I need to mind my own business per se.
Essentially, yeah, but see what happens is the manager will rise and fall over how he manages his stuff, and unless he makes you his assistant manager, he's got to stand on his own two legs.
Okay. Well, see, this has been on my mind lately because there's just been several things going on, and I did as to walk with Hashem, I didn't know where the line needed to be drawn. I didn't want to cross a line there, and I know I mean by what we've talked tonight, I've crossed it, but I wanted to understand this more so I can make better decisions. And Thomas is raising his hand.
Yeah.
I see what you mean, Pesach. But now, what if Terry was in the position where that person was doing something that might cause harm to someone? Would that be different?
Absolutely, something that's different. That's absolutely something different. It's going to do harm, cause a fire, damage property, anything like that. Yes, but first you go to the person himself and explain to him what a danger it is. Then if he does it again, you might go to the manager and say, look, this is a danger. He's putting the trash next to the furnace or next to something that's going to catch on fire, something like that. Yes. No.
Yeah, most of this is just shirking their responsibilities. And to answer Dale, I mean, I close the gate every day as part of my duty that I do. It's just this person, had 30 more minutes on his job. There was nothing to do. He was sitting in a chair. I was getting two drivers out, getting them loaded and going. And I just asked them hey, can you go close the gate for me? And then I just double checked to see if it was closed, and it wasn't. So I just went and done. I mean, it's kind of my response. I wasn't asked. It's an unasked responsibility because I close up my end of the building every day, and that's just part of it.
Okay, let me explain something about halakha and Jewish law. And if you do something 3 times in a row, it's your responsibility. If you close that gate 3 days in a row, then everybody else is looking at it as, oh, Terry's going to do it. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So then you've taken on that responsibility, making sure things closed. If it was left open, it would have been your fault, not the kid's fault.
Right. So that's the reason why I'm asking, because I want to know what's the proper procedure for us in handling situations on the job.
Yeah, well, in this case, I would never ask the kid to lock it again.
Oh, no, no, I ain't gonna do that. No, but it was just, I guess I was having in my conscience, about certain things that are going on at work. And I'm like, do I really have the responsibility to bring what's going on to the manager? Because I know he doesn't know it. And because I'm back where these people are at and I see what's going on, he just kind of comes and goes because he's on the computer all day dealing with a lot of other stuff. But,
Well, evidently, this employee has something they're supposed to do all day. Eventually, he's going to see what the employee's supposed to do is not getting done.
right.
Okay.
I was just wanting to know where I stood, in the of 7 laws and how I should handle situations
If
with
it
other
was
people.
stopping you from completing your job, in other words, there was a step here that had to be done so you could complete your job, I would talk to him, the boy, first, and then if it didn't work, then I would go to my manager and say, I'm really having a problem getting this part of my job done. I need help. Why? Well, the guy you hired to do that part of the job isn't doing it. Now that you can do.
Okay, I understand. That helps it helps my mind know what I need to do.
I understand where you're coming from, Terry. I used to be in charge of a shop. I had 300 people underneath me. And then when they went out of business, I went to a different business. And I wasn't low on the pole because of my experience, but sometimes you see these people do these things and you're like, you want to pull your hair out. I understand where you're coming from.
That's true.
This is the deeper things of our laws that I enjoy. I want to learn more about.
Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions you got about it. But I mentioned the thing, you do something 3 times in a row, it becomes more like a vow than just something you're doing. Let's say you pass a certain person that needs money once a week, and every once a week you hand them money. $1, $2, 50 cents, whatever it is. If you do it 3 times in a row, then you're making a vow. You can do it every time you see him. An actual vow before God. So what we do at Rosh Hashana, we had something called cancellation of vows that we pray before God. There's 10 men, and you stand up in front of them, and there's a prayer you say. So, if I inadvertently made a vow that I didn't think I was making, and that's one of them, where you do something 3 times in a row for somebody, like locking the gate. You took the responsibility of locking the gate. Now, if it's left open, who are they going to come look at?
Mm.
You took on that responsibility, so it's now your vow that you're going to close that gate every day. And if it stays open at night or it doesn't get closed, they're going to come looking to you. Hey, why didn't you do this? You're doing it all the time. So there's some really deep things you can get into about all this stuff. But if you let a manager who's promoted to that position to be a manager so he can manage. Manage means to do things. And if he's got to sit on a computer all day, if that's his job title is to sit at a computer all day, fine, but I'm sure it's not. I'm sure he's a manager of a certain level of the warehouse or maybe the whole warehouse. It's his job to make sure everybody's doing their job that works under him. The problem is, and there's a book called The Peter Principle that came out years ago. Every good employee gets promoted to their level of incompetence. And this happens to us with God also. Somebody may be a really good person and they do everything right and they're excellent at what they do. And then they're said, okay, we're going to move you up one level, give you more responsibility. Great. They do that level. They're doing everything good. They're doing everything the way they're supposed to. So someone comes and says, we're going to put you up one more level. It gets up to the next level, and wait a minute, what happened here? The guy says to himself, I can't I can't accomplish all this stuff. I can't get it all done. I can't focus. I got to watch this. I got to watch that. This good manager got promoted one step above what he's capable of managing. And every one of you have seen it in your lifetime. You have someone managing over you that, how did this dope get this job? I mean, that's what you think in your head, but that's what happens. And I was general manager of a place for a lot of years. And I watched it happen in the beginning when I first started being general manager. And I said, okay, I have to be very careful now who I promote up into the next level. Because it's destructive to the person, it's destructive to the business. So I personally would usually sit with somebody and just talk to them about it and just see if they can handle going up one more level. Especially when guys a manager of a warehouse, it shouldn't be, maybe part of his job is sitting on a computer all day long, but the other part is making sure that what goes on in the warehouse gets done properly. He's the guy that should be locking the gate unless he tells somebody else to do it. See, that's part of his management job. I'm just saying that's the level of management he's at. But you took that responsibility on, so now it's yours. Unless you tell him you're not locking the gate anymore. That's how you have to relieve yourself of that responsibility. It's hard to do that once you start doing something.
Yeah, it's not really a big deal. I'm just my main.
No, I use
my
it
main
as
question was co-worker interactions.
interact with them very nicely. Don't hold it against them. Dale said, thought that was only in government. Dude, it's in all businesses. What happens is when somebody gets there, they're out of the job within 18 months.
You know, what you just said about being promoted up beyond your level, I think it can go, sometimes we feel we need to promote ourselves to the next level. And I'm equating this to my conversion experience. I studied for almost 7 months. I backed out. And by what you're saying, I think if I had tried to promote myself to that next level, I wouldn't have done as good as staying where I'm at. I kind of equated with what you said there with my own personal experience, because I've had several things that I was concerned with as far as observing certain mitzvahs for men. Not that I had anything against them, but just some of them I struggled with doing. And when you said that, I'm like, wow, I could have made myself a whole lot more troublesome than I needed if I just stayed where I was at.
That's true. A lot of people do that. Oh, teachers do it also. So people teaching on the internet do the same thing. They go into a level of teaching they shouldn't even be touching, and they kind of screw up the heads of the people they're teaching to. Everything is relative to what you can actually do and accomplish. But the biggest problem is recognizing that you can't accomplish that. Recognizing you can't do it. I was general manager of a company for a lot of years, and one day I just woke up one morning and decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. I was tired of it. I went and got a hack license and drove a cab for a while. I went from here to there in most people's eyes, but I was enjoying myself. But people can't tell themselves, well, I failed at this level. They're always going to blame it on somebody else. And when you have people complaining about other people and tripping them up and giving them a problem, when you have managers telling their managers, well, I didn't get my job done because of this person or that person, the other person, they're just not capable of taking the blame on themselves. That it's their fault. They got promoted too high up and they just can't handle it. And what you did after almost 7 years of study, you realized this just wasn't for you. It was just too much. That was a big decision you made. Also, allows you to, it means you had to humble yourself in some way. And this is the biggest thing that God wants us to do, is humble ourselves in front of him, in front of everybody. What we want and what we think is not that important. What God wants and what he thinks and what he needs from us is more important than anything else. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about? I'm not getting any sound, I guess.
No,
Oh, okay.
okay, I guess we're about ready to close the meeting.
Yeah, next week.
Oh,
Next
wait,
week.
Thomas has his hand up real quick. Hold on. Go ahead, Thomas.
I just want to say I'm so happy I got this HBO Chrome or HP Chromebook. It's so awesome to watch you all. And I just figured out how to move the pictures. Now all I need to do is get a comfortable chair that don't feel like a boulder with 1,000 little boulders on top of it.
Very good. And next week, I won't be here, but Terry will be here. The week after, I'll be back. And I'll watch it after you get it up on the next week up, so I can see what you did all about.
So he'll be like the substitute?
Well, he's not. He's gonna whatever time, whatever it is. He's in charge next week.
Well, I don't know about being in charge.
So God bless you guys. Have a good, sweet, wonderful, healthy, and financially good new year of creation, 5780. And see you on the other side of my day of Yom Kippur, the day of repentance.
Shana Tova.
God bless you all.